So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and this is a city with a population of 1.6 million people and rising. It's the capital and largest city in Arizona, and it actually has the largest population of any state capital in the United States, which I thought was kind of interesting. And we'll get to the crime numbers in a second. 43% Hispanic, 40% white, and 7% black. And the average age here is 34, so it's a little on the young side, with 15% of the adults being seniors, which I would have expected that being higher because so many people retire here, but they must retire to the suburbs and not to the actual city limits. The average income here is $41,000 a year, which is about normal, I guess. And since I've been here, if you see that little median home there, and you can see the cart with all the person's belongings, there's a lot of that here. A lot of it. I got off, the first exit I pulled off of, I was just going to get some gas, and there was so many homeless people on that corner that I just got right back on the freeway and kept driving. And at that exit there was a ton of garbage. I wasn't recording at that point. That was yesterday. I'm going to be here like a few days, so I'm going to try and get a decent video of what it's like here. But now we're kind of rolling into downtown, and the poverty rate here is 15%, which is about normal for, you know, a city of this size, or maybe even a little on the low side for a city of this size. There's a 42% marriage rate, which is actually pretty good compared to most cities. 43% of the people that live here were born here, and that's actually kind of low. And 13% are non-citizens, which that makes sense considering how close we are to the border. But there's a decent amount of graffiti. Not a lot, it's not like Baltimore or anything, but there's a decent amount of graffiti here. I'm going to mainly stick for this, at least for the first part of this, just stick to the downtown. And I'm going to try and get some footage out of town a little bit more before I leave here. But the homicides, they had over 200 in 2017, and then it dropped to 112 by 2015, and then it was back up to 217 in 2022. So they were having a bad problem with the crime here, and I talked to some people here, and they said 30 years ago that the crime was super bad, like you couldn't even walk around downtown and stuff. And so they were saying how good it is now compared to that, but it's getting right back up there. It might have went down, but it's getting right back up there. And the murder rate last year was 13.2, which is actually pretty good for a city this size. Okay, now we're getting into the downtown. There's the Science Center. The assault rates, yeah, we can turn here. The assault rates went from the 300 to 400s pre-2020 to over 500 post-2020. And in 2022, the assault rate was 548, which is basically the same as Chicago. And that's on the rise. It's not a a big rise by any means, but it's on the rise from what they were having prior to 2020. So it didn't get hit too bad here, but you know, the homicides are back up, and the assault rates are higher than they've been in a long time. The violent crime here is 123% higher than the national average, which is higher than regular city bad. I consider anything right around 100 to be regular city bad, so it's not, you know, much higher, but it is definitely higher. The year-over-year crime here is decreasing, though, they're showing, and I think that's probably, after 2020, a lot of cities had really bad 2021s, and then 2022 looked better in comparison. And I think that if they're showing a 2% decrease, it's just because things got really bad for a period of time. And your odds of becoming a victim of a crime here is 1 in 27. And we're not really coming across much on this drive. There's a person living on the street right there on the side. I didn't get the camera over to that. The cost of living here is lower than the national average. Yep, there goes halfway through the red light when it changed. The test scores as far as the schools, 39% of the students here graduate proficient at reading and math. The Arizona average is 43 and the national average is 48. So the schools leave a little to be desired. 77% of the people that live here completed high school. That's not very good. So 3 out of 4 basically people that live here completed high school. And the Central City area, that's the violent crime there is 631% higher than the national average. The Alhambra neighborhood, 322% worse. The Encanto neighborhood, 255% worse. I'm hoping to be able to get to those before I leave here and just see what the bad areas look like. The downtown itself isn't too bad, depending on what time of day you're here. And it's just how many homeless people you come across, which is normal for a lot of cities nowadays to have just a ton of homeless people. I haven't seen too many this morning, but yesterday there were tons of them. But I wasn't really in the downtown as much yesterday either. This is the downtown, and it looks pretty good. It's actually kind of clean here. I was in city limits, but literally like about no more than 5 miles away from here, and it was just horrible. And maybe I'll try and go back to that area tomorrow if I have time and get some footage of that. But they keep the downtown is relatively clean. But there's still people that live on the street walking around. And I feel like in some ways, when you drive through all these cities, and you start seeing stuff, I feel like I'm judging cities more harshly. Because the lady I was talking to yesterday, she lived here 30 years ago and then moved and came back like in the last year. And she was just so happy that how much better it was than how it was before that, or when she lived here 30 years ago. And I guess it's all on your perspective on how this stuff is. My dad used to live down here. He would come down here in the winters for a couple months. He would rent a place down here for a couple months right after he retired. And he doesn't do that anymore, but he would come down here. So I've been down here a bunch of times, and to me the city looks worse than it did 5 years ago. But that's basing it on me being here, you know, 1 week a year for, you know, a handful of years. But it's mainly because of the all the homeless people that I don't know where they stay at night, but they were definitely out during the day yesterday, just hanging out. Street's closed. But yeah, this has been kind of uneventful, this drive. Trying to stick to the downtown area just because I only have about a short period of time to do this today, but we got all the stats in anyway of the city, and it's not, I mean, of the larger cities, it's probably, I'm going to have to do a video on what's the safest of the larger cities, of all the cities that are over like 1 million people. If I had to guess, this would be one of the safer of those. Because it's definitely not Philly, it's definitely not Chicago. It's definitely not New York, although New York has a super low murder rate. Their murder rate's like 5. So maybe just because of the number of people, it would be safer there. Yeah, here's where we get more of the... Yeah, this is just an uneventful drive. Okay, well, I'm going to cut this short here, and hopefully I am able to get more footage of the outside of downtown, but still in the city limits, because that was areas that I was in yesterday that were, they definitely did not look good. And I'll try and get some footage of that so that the end of this video at least ends with something worth watching. All right, thanks for watching.